Namaskar. Viewers, welcome to the next series of the Gyan Ganga Words of Wisdom. Every Sunday we have this program at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time, and today again we are back with Dr. Subramanian Swamy, your favorite guest, and to discuss two particular issues today. We have with me my co-host, Mr. Jagdish Shetty, Mr. Ramesh Swamy, and this program is supported by the technical team led by Mr. Ashish Shetty, Tejas, Gadgi Rakesh, Ishwar Iyer, Swaminathan, and Vishal Mehta. Viewers, the two subjects that we have today to discuss, one of them is the first Gyan Vapi Masjid and Kashi Vishwanath temple in Kashi, Varanasi. As you know, there has been a controversy, and this issue is being taken up by Dr. Subramanian Swamy. This issue is linked with a act passed by the Narasimha Rao government in 1991 regarding the religious places. Dr. Swamy has challenged this act, and the hearing is soon will be taken up in the court. Second issue is that the fourth time Prime Ministers Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa and Podujana Party in Sri Lanka. He was earlier president of the Sri Lanka, and now his brother is the president of Sri Lanka. This morning, he was sworn in as the Prime Minister fourth time, and we will talk about Indo-Sri Lanka relations. Some of you may be knowing that 2 years back, Dr. Subramanian Swamy and Virat Hindustan Sangam has invited Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa to New Delhi, and that was an opening of a new chapter in Sri Lanka relations. So we will be talking about these two topics. We have with us Dr. Subramanian Swamy, and Dr. Swamy will start with the first topic of the Kashi Vishwanath. Then we'll take up the Sri Lanka issue, and my co-host Jagdish Shetty and Ramesh Swamy will be asking questions regarding this. Dr. Swamy, welcome.
Yes, well, thank you very much. Both these issues in different ways are very important. So let me start first with the Gyan Vapi Kashi Vishwanath temple. There is an existing Kashi Vishwanath temple where people go to do puja and so on. And this was built by Ahilya from Holkar, the Indore area Rajas. They are Marathas. And but the Jyotirling, which was uprooted on the orders of Aurangzeb, was actually thrown into a well, which is in Sanskrit they call Vapi. So this Gyan Vapi is supposed to still have that ling. And some time ago, maybe even a century ago, or maybe more than that, that well has been sealed. And so when you go today, you can't look into the well. So the issue is that there is no doubt that the Kashi Vishwanath temple, and as popularly called as the Gyan Vapi temple, this temple was demolished on a farman issued by Aurangzeb. And surprisingly, Aurangzeb had a very petty reason. He had a suspicion that Jai Singh of the Maharaja of Jaipur had played a role in helping Shivaji escape from the Agra fort. And so, and this was a temple which was a favorite of the Jaipur house, and was being looked after by the Jaipur house at that stage. And so he had it demolished. That's what it said. I mean, Aurangzeb has nowhere said that. He just gave a fatwa saying that demolish it. And it has been demolished. The temple has been demolished because even today, when you go and see the Gyan Vapi Masjid, as it's called, Jama Masjid is the internal name, but popularly known as Gyan Vapi Masjid. if you go and see, you will see a part of the temple still forming a part of the mosque, and in pictures and so on. So when about 30, 40 years ago, a tabulation was made of all the temples that were demolished during the Mughal period. The list varied according to who drew up the list, but generally speaking, it is accepted 40,000 were demolished. But in the end, all the sadhus like Swami Chinyanand, the RSS, Vishwanath Parishad, they all got together and said only 3 should be restored, and the others, if the 3 are restored without objection from the Muslim community, then we will forego the remaining 40,000 minus 3. And so the focus is on 3. And Ram temple was the first one, which the Vishwanath Parishad and Swami Chinmyanand and many sadhus came together, decided to launch an agitation. And as far as the legal side is concerned, there have been cases going on for a long time. And in 1949, there was a fresh spurt of cases because on December 21st night or 22nd night of 1949, suddenly the Chaukidar discovered that behind the locked doors, iron grilled doors, there were murtis of Ram, Lakshman, Sita, Hanuman suddenly had emerged inside. And there was no way to find out, nobody could find out, the police couldn't find out. The Jawaharlal Nehru was livid. He wanted the then magistrate to take out those idols and remove them from the masjid. But that there was K.K. Nair, a Keralite ICS officer who was the magistrate. He refused. And then he had to resign. And after he resigned, he joined Zansang. And he was an MP for about 2-3 terms. And but the lock remained, and the idols remained inside. But people could not go inside and do puja. So they had to do it from outside the gate, looking through the gate and looking at the murti. This went on and on till Rajiv Gandhi ordered the locks to be opened, and that's how the whole movement started in a big way. And then, of course, the Doordarshan showing the Ramayana serial. Now that's all old story now, because the Ram Mandir is being, the process has begun for rebuilding it. So the question is, which is the next? Now that's not for me to specify, because I am not interested in agitation, nor I was interested in the Ram Mandir agitation. I was only interested in the legal aspects. Do we have a legal case? And for the Ram temple, we had an easy legal case, at least from my point of view, that we believed Ram was born there. What is the proof of that? My faith. There's no need to give me proof. We don't give proof for Jesus Christ being born in Bethlehem, or Muhammad going to heaven from Al-Aqsa Mosque. We don't give faith. This is the faith, and there's no mathematical proof for it. So therefore, Ram was born there, and therefore my faith says Ram was born there. Therefore, my fundamental right says I have a right to pray, and that's how the arguments I got it. The whole litigation started, and if you see the judgment, faith is a very important part of the judgment. So here the block was both for Mathura and Kashi Vishwanath, that in 1991, before the Babri Masjid was demolished, I think July 1991, Babri Masjid I think was demolished perhaps in 1992, December 6th, 1992. Yeah. So Narasimha Rao brought in a thing that except for the Ram temple agitation and the Ram temple demand, because there have been court cases going on from a long time, he said it will be, and this is a parliament law passed by Parliament. He said that the religious institutions which were there in 1947, 15th August, shall remain irrespective of whether they were built on demolition or not built on demolition, so on. So as is a law was made that what was there as is in 1947, 15th August, that shall remain. So therefore, it has been interpreted that Kashi Vishwanath and the Mathura Krishna temple, these two, there was a masjid in 1947, August 15th, and therefore that cannot be changed. So I have been looking at the law. Is this a sensible law? Because there are so many things in it which I can't believe that any parliament, sensible parliament, would have passed. I was a member of parliament at that time, but I wasn't taking interest in the matter. And probably I was on tour because the voting shows that I didn't vote. I was on perhaps outside on a tour. So therefore, this actually says no case can be filed for the restoration of these temples or mosques or churches that existed on 15th August 1947. And since a masjid in Varanasi, in Gyanvapi, existed at that time, so you can't remove it. That was the meaning of that. And it also therefore said you can't file writ petitions. Now, writ petition under Article 32 or 226 is part of the basic structure, and no law of parliament can bar it. And this particular law has not yet been challenged on its constitutionality. There have been 2 occasions when it has been mentioned in judgments, both 5 judges. One is the Ismail Faruqi judgment, famous judgment of 1994, which dealt with the Ram Mandir issue in great detail and paved the way for heading towards a solution. And the other was in this recent, when the Ram Mandir matter was being considered, a special sitting was made of 5 judges, and Justice Ashok Bhushan then delivered the judgment on behalf of the others. And there also, there is no question of it being mentioned as a constitutionally valid law. So I am going on this issue. How can you bar me from filing a writ petition if my fundamental right is taken away? Whether it's taken away or not is another question. So I'm going to the Supreme Court, not specifically because Kashi Vishwanath should be freed or Gyanvapi should be freed, but that you can't have a law which says that I can't file a writ petition on a matter of my faith and my fundamental right to pray at a particular spot. So that is what I am filing. There is also an additional factor that the constitutional bench in the Faruqi case had maintained that Islam is in Islam, a masjid is not an essential part of the religion. And it also says that therefore it can be shifted, it can be demolished. And of course, legally, I mean, mobs can't demolish it, but legally. So by legal process, you can remove a mosque from a particular place. So therefore, I would have expected that they would have said no, because of that under no circumstances now a mosque can be removed. So there's a lot of contradictions in it. So I am now saying to the Supreme Court that please have a review of this act and make it constitutional. You cannot say that I cannot challenge the constitutionality of an act, especially when it has never been decided. Even if it's decided by 5 judges, you can always ask for 7 judges, you can always for 9 judges, you can ask for 11 judges. In the medical college case, they actually had 11 judges. Or you can add all the 38 judges of Supreme Court to sit at one sitting and one bench and decide this matter. So I'm saying that since it has never been so, please clarify in what way, if you can give an exemption to the Ram temple, how can you not give an exemption to the Kashi Vishwanath and the Mathura case? They are not interested in the others, whether it applies or not applies. We will let it all remain as it is, as per the desire of people that now, let's forget the past. But these three are special. Why? Because in the case of Ram, we said he was born there, and our faith says he was born there, and so there's no other place where we say Ram was born. So therefore, it became a special temple for us. Secondly, Kashi Vishwanath, the linga was actually a Jyotirlinga. That means Lord Shiva sent it in a ball of fire and planted it there. So that's something very special. In the case of Mathura, of course, I may add, Krishna was born there, according to our faith. And so these remaining two are special. And as far as Kashi Vishwanath is concerned, it is blatant. I mean, what Aurangzeb did, it was demolished twice or thrice by Islamic forces. And finally, Ahilya, Rani Ahilya built another temple, which is a flourishing temple. But in the end, it's really the Gyanvyapi thing. So I would say that today, what we are trying to do is bring some legality in the process. And I am not going to start any agitation or any of those old things, old techniques that were used, of which I was not a part at that time also. But to say that if the law permits, and I would like the Muslim community also to be persuaded. And I think when people told me that whatever judgment the Supreme Court gives, the Muslim community will not accept. But I kept saying, if you remember, that no, the Muslim community says this should go to court. They themselves are in court. There are parties in the court, and they will accept it. And that was my feeling after talking to the civilized elements of the Muslim community, which will be about 95%. And they certainly are saying, if the law says so, we'll obey it, which is also true for Hindus. If the law says, no, you can't, then we'll abide by it. But I think I should challenge it. The other way would have been that, after all, Narendra Modi is elected from Varanasi not once but twice. And so we could bring a amendment in Parliament. And in that amendment, we can say that this limitation that has been put in there in Section 4 of only Ram Janmabhoomi land would be expanded to 2 more and not any more, because none of the others have any of these special reasons, a special a special factor like being born somewhere, God being born there, or Lord himself came and put the murti in the temple. So we could do either. But I think first let us have it debated. Court is not going to decide tomorrow or day after. Even if they accept, which is on the 14th when I present it, even if they'll issue notice, then the government will be asked to file a reply. In the meantime, a lot of people will come and they all want to be part, so they will put in their petitions to be tagged with mine. So this process will go on. It's going to take time. This is something that needs to be debated in a big way. And I would say that we have some of the history we have to change. We don't want to do it the way Turkey has done. And I'm surprised that not a single well-known Muslim organization in India has condemned what Turkey has done. Turkey, you see, there was originally a mosque. Then the Christians conquered Turkey, and then they built a church. Then Kamal Mustafa Atatürk, whatever his name is, he was a kind of a liberal.
Kamal Atatürk.
Kamal Atatürk. He was he was a reformer. So he said, I will convert this into a museum sort of place, and we will get both. The exhibits will include both Islamic and Christian thing. Now, unilaterally, there was an agreement that was accepted. It has gone on for maybe a century, and now you find that the new the present president of Turkey, he has unilaterally declared that it is a mosque and taken over, and namaz has started, and it's been converted into a mosque. Now, we are not people who are going to do that. And I would say to the Muslim community also, you should condemn this, because that was an agreement, and the whole world welcomed it. And now you have this converted. You see, when you see Hindus being brutalized in Pakistan, the kind of stories that come out, the poor Hindus are left, many of them are committing suicide left, right, and center. You wonder what is this? It cannot be a one-way traffic. See, if you want a democratic society, there should be a mutual agreement that will abide by the laws of the country and the procedures that we have agreed to. So I would say that I am not going to advocate or permit or be a part of any violent activities in this matter. Nor was I there participate in the earlier violent activities. But the fact is that this is the law. We need to. We have a constitution which tells us which law can stand, which law can't stand, and from that point of view, I wanted that this Kashi Vishwanath should be made as a test case, and the law amended to make it in conformity with our constitution, and not try to wipe out Article 32, which is part of the basic structure of the Constitution. The right to file, for judicial review, the right for filing your, fundamental rights, a challenge to your fundamental rights or denial of fundamental rights. These are, you can't just remove them and say, no, it's by an act superseded. There's no procedure. In fact, this one of the minus points in this act also is that it even includes by the new law what crimes were committed in 1947 to 1991 during this period. In fact, Babri Masjid was demolished after this act came, and there was they didn't apply to this act was not applied. Not because the Babri Masjid could be demolished because of the exemption given to Ram Temple agitation, Ram Temple restoration. It was, I mean, nobody asked for it. Surprised, I'm really surprised. They could easily invoke the Act of 1991, Places of Worship Act 1991. So, all told, it is the duty of persons like me who are members of parliament, who can, who are entitled to enforce the law. We are both Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha pass laws, and the laws are violated either through parliament or any other, and the Supreme Court has been specially designated to verify whether a law is consistent with constitution or not, and so to assist the Supreme Court to come to this conclusion. And I would like to play this in a low-key way and not in a highly inflamed debate as most people have been doing it in the past.
Dr. Swamy, before we go to perhaps the next part of the program,
yes,
I believe that there was a Sant Sammelan held in Mathura a few months ago, and there was a unanimous decision that you should lead this legal battle on the issue. Can you just tell us something about it and who all were involved?
Yeah, there were many Shankaracharyas. The Varanasi Shankaracharyas were very much in the forefront, and some of them become office bearers also. I've been, unanimously elected president of a body which has been created of mostly sadhus. 99% are sadhus, sannyasis, matadishis, and Shankaracharyas, and so on. It's called Shri Kashi Gyan Vapi Mukti Yagya Samiti, and it couldn't hold a meeting because of Corona. And we are hoping that by September, this Corona would be reduced to such a level that we will be able to hold meetings. And then we'll hold a meeting. And there is huge support for it, huge support. I mean, states after states have been writing to me saying that we want to be part of it, we want to join, how can we become members, so on. So I think my job will be to see that this remains in this process in a democratic way, within the framework of the Constitution, and clarify to the whole country why it is necessary to restore Gyanvapi Kashi Vishwanath temple.
Dr. Swamy, I have one, like in Ram Janmabhoomi's case,
Yes.
they disputed whether Rama was born there and things like that, which basically is a fundamental faith argument that came in, right? Is there such a dispute saying that the Jyotirlinga was brought in by Shankara in Yanvapi's case? Are they disputing anything? I mean, I'm just saying.
No. See, as for a good question, the thing is that no Hindu challenges that. He says, yes, there are 12 Jyotirlings in the country. Somnath was one of them. There are other places, and this is one of the 12.
Okay.
And Shiva himself, sent these Jyotirlings through a ball of fire. That's why I call Jyotirling, and set it up in Gyanvapi in Varanasi. So there's no dispute amongst Hindus whatsoever.
What about
but in the Muslim case, they say there was no such temple ever. I mean, this is what I've seen, where the people who are now running, it's in their internal lingo, it is called Jama Masjid, Varanasi Jama Masjid, but otherwise popularly known as Gyanvapi Mosque or Gyanvapi Masjid. And they say, no, this is not true. But this is a glaring thing. The Nandi is facing the Nandi is still surviving, and it's facing the masjid. Now, how can Nandi be facing the masjid?
There was one peculiar case in Tamil Nadu High Court, 2009, where somebody contested a Swayambhu Lingam. Right? So the court said that, I mean, they proved saying that it is not Swayambhu. But what the court said that if the petitioner can prove that it is Swayambhu, by some inscription in some wall, something like that, then it cannot be proved. Then he has the right to keep the Swayambhu Lingam there. Because this was happening in that when they built a new complex for the so-called now hospital, earlier the secretariat, when they built that thing, came up because when Karnanidhi wanted to remove all the temples, so somebody petitioned in this particular case. So that is what I'm saying. Because there the court said, if you prove in some, not saying you can't say Swayambhu, you can't say when it appeared, but some inscription dating back thousands of years that this was the case, that's it. That's proof enough. So can that logic be used?
No, Aurangzeb's Farman is there. He has said it is a temple, it should be demolished.
Perfect.
There's no dispute on that.
Okay.
I mean, some people now may say, but the Aurangzeb's Farman is enough. Everything is in it.
Okay.
So
thank you.
there's no question. Yeah. So shall we go to the next subject? Or
yes, Rajapaksa's victory.
I'm very pleased. Let me first say, what does it mean for India? You see, Rajapaksa and his brother, they come from the grassroots. They are not elites. They don't owe their culture to any foreign religion, none of that. They are from the grassroots. Unlike all the others, they come from elites, gone to convent schools, things like that. Now, he came suddenly, unexpectedly to power in 2005. And at that time, the LTT was totally unmanageable. And in fact, vast parts of northern Sri Lanka was already under their control. And there some mistakes were made. For example, the then president of Sri Lanka, he actually collaborated with the LTT, giving them weapons and money to fight the IPKF, which had gone to protect Sri Lanka. But I mean, there was no policy as such. But by the time 2003, 2004, LTT had become so big that people are talking about recognizing Prabhakaran as the dictator of the new Tamil Eelam and so on. And Karunanidhi was dreaming of being, that Tamil Nadu being part of that. So on, all kinds of things were there. But when after Rajapaksa came, he tried to bring them to talk on a table, but they consistently made some excuse or the other, didn't agree. And for some strange reason, in 2004, when the UPA came, Sonia Gandhi took a dislike to Rajapaksa. Could be the fact that Christians had a less easy time in Sri Lanka in conversion because Rajapaksa was a staunch Buddhist, and when he comes to India, he goes to Sanchi because he also goes to Tirupati temple, Tirumala Tirupati temple. So the Rajapaksa had a defense secretary who was his brother, was a military man earlier, and he had become defense secretary in the bureaucracy, not defense minister, but defense secretary. And defense ministry was with Rajapaksa himself, Mahinda Rajapaksa. So Gotabaya Rajapaksa, he became defense, and he is also a very different personality, but equally likable because he's blunt, straightforward, aggressive, and he's quite open to suggestions. So these two then decided that we can't go on bleeding. For example, I'll give you an example that there was more Tamil leaders were killed by the LTT than Sinhalese leaders. You'll be surprised. Amritalingam, Yogeshwaran, Niram Tiruchelvam, across the board, any Tamil leader emerged who would not accept Prabhakaran's leadership, but he had his own organization. Prabhakaran ordered their killing systematically. And there was a foreign minister who was a Tamil in the Sri Lankan government. And this LTT went to the 12-story building next to his house, and he used to come into the open lawn, and there was a swimming pool. He used to go swimming. So they found out his pattern, and then from that 12-story building, they killed him. I mean, he was the most harmless person in terms of him, and he was not part of any military action against LTT. But they killed him because he was a Tamil. He was confusing the people by being with the Sinhalese. So the Sinhalese and the Tamils can't get along together, was one of the planks of the LTT. So these people decided, okay, we are, no matter how many of our soldiers die, we are going to finish these people. And of course, I was supportive. I went and addressed their military and talked about military strategy year after year. And some of you, I think Jagdish has come with me on 1 or 2 trips of that. And I was of the view that we can't allow Tamil Nadu to become secessionist. And these LTT were, being Tamils, they were quite intelligent also. So they were money laundering in a big scale, antique smuggling. And you know why Sonia Gandhi would like him, we like them. So all this happened. So I decided I would support him. Of course, the Tamils were all very angry and called me anti-Tamil, this, that, typical Brahmin, I'm Aryan, blah, blah, God knows what all they kept saying. But I said it's in our interest that the LTT should be finished. And I gave him support. I used my friendships in America and other countries to see that Rajapaksa was supported. I had difficulty getting him to be friends with India because India was not in his favor. And for some reason, 2015, I think Mr. Doval and our foreign ministry and all decided that Rajapaksa, after 10 years of rule, is now balancing between China and India, and therefore we must have somebody who will be totally Indian. So they played a role in the elections. I won't specify what kind of role, but they did play a role. And this caused a lot of bitterness in Rajapaksa, who lost narrowly the elections. And so in those lean years, I thought that, since he had finished off the LTT and killed Prabhakaran in 2009, and thereby there was complete peace, and Sri Lanka returned to complete normalcy, that a person like this who could stand up and face also the Western barrage on human rights, like we are having today for CAA, and whatever we do, there's always some shout and scream in the Western world. So they wanted to take him to genocide tribunal, the UN Human Rights Council, and so on. So at those times I was with him, and that's how friendships grow when you are with somebody when he's not in the position of power. So therefore, I thought that he's very good for India. And ultimately, after the Sri Sena and Vikramasinghe's government came, they were more interested in being friends with America than with India. And there was a little disenchantment in our circles also. And that's the time I decided that I will invite Rajapaksa to give a speech, because one of the things that was used as a propaganda against Rajapaksa was that India doesn't like him. And therefore, there are a lot of people there who say that India should be on our side, and therefore many of them were not supporters of Rajapaksa on that. So I brought him here, and you were all there in those meetings. Rajapaksa performed extremely well. He spoke extremely well, very balanced, and people were all surprised because the image that came before he came here was that, oh, he's a hardliner, he's a ruffian, he's a brute, and so on. Everything went, and then Prime Minister Modi also went out his way, even though he was not in power, and even though the government of the day was his enemy or his opponent. Still, he invited him to meet him. And of course, before he came, I had informed the Prime Minister's office that he'll be here and it'd be good if you could meet him. And he met him, and they had a 1.5 hour talk. And all the reservations that Modi had about him was fed into his brain by the bureaucracy in India. All had to disappear. And after that, we ensured that this time's election, nobody from India would play any role and have any involvement in the elections. And he's come back with 2/3 majority. His brother has already been elected as president. Rajapaksa could not stand for, Mahinda Rajapaksa could not stand for elections because after he lost the election, the new government passed a law that nobody can be president for more than 2 terms. And he had already done 2 terms. So he could not become president. And now he's got 2/3 majority. He can easily remove that law, and he could exchange places with his brother. But they are different personalities. There's not a family in that traditional sense. And they can have disagreements, they can have disagreements. And so now I had also, during the election period, the newspapers from Sri Lanka interviewed me, and they said that, a very large section of Tamils also have great regard for you. What do you have to say? So I said, well, they have issues. The Tamils have many issues which need to be settled. But don't expect Rajapaksa to do it if you don't vote for him. I mean, if you in the Gotabaya's election, there was a clean sweep in favor of his opponent by the Tamils. They didn't vote for him. But this time, the Tamils have voted in substantial number, I think. That is why he's got 2/3 majority, which was not expected. I got it. And now I think the Tamil problems will also be solved. And I personally will also, speak with the Tamils on my knowledge of the law and what is possible under the Sri Lankan constitution, what's not. And I'm sure that Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa both will be receptive to my informal suggestions that I'll make. I have no other locus standi. It's just a friend and a friendly person, and bring about change. Now, you see, all our neighbors are all in 6s and 7s as far as China-India relations concerned. But one of the things that Rajapaksa did was that the previous government had said they could not pay the loan that Chinese had advanced for the Hambantota port. Now, the Hambantota port, Rajapaksa first offered it to Manmohan Singh. And Sonia Gandhi said, nothing doing. This killer of Tamils, we can't give any money for this. So then the Chinese turned up there and said, why are you asking India? We'll give you, instead of loans, we'll give you long-term loans, concessional loans, concessional terms. Now, suddenly, these all became due for payment. And India also gave a lot, very generous loans to the previous government. They also became due for payment. And so he was in a difficulty. So I raised it with the PM through a letter that, we should reschedule these loans because this is a time of Corona, this, that, all these problems are there. And so let us reschedule. But PM did one thing better. He told the Sri Lankans, you give us in currency, Srinali currency, Sri Lankan currency, and we'll give you dollars. So the exchange was done by our giving Sri Lanka $400-500 million and taking the money in Sri Lankan rupees, which we are now using to buy goods for our country from Sri Lanka. So this has created a new atmosphere, and it also had a good impact on the elections. And I think since Nepal is gone and Bhutan is, Damadol, and Bangladesh you can never be sure of. Maldives is far away, but there was a time Maldives, till Nasheed came back, was very pro-Chinese. But this one is a very strategically placed island, and we should go the extra step to see that Sri Lanka is kept within our friendly relations, and we have mutual exchange, which is beneficial for both.
Dr. Swamy, one very important link between India and Sri Lanka is, geographically speaking, is Ram Setu, what is called Adam's Bridge.
Yeah.
And you have played a very important role in restoring the Ram Setu, the status quo, before the NDA government had actually announced to demolish it, or the Supreme Court
not demolish. India government was, you mean the Vajpayee India government? Right.
Not a Modi government. And you had a very important role through Supreme Court, of course.
Yes.
And now, since it has been restored, what is the Sri Lanka government's take on this Ram Setu thing?
Well, I'm glad you asked this question, because Sri Lanka played, when Rajapaksa was president already when I took this matter up in the Supreme Court. That was in 2007 onwards till 2009 when I won the case. The Sri Lankan, you see, the Ram Setu is cut by a canal of the Setu Samudram project. That is what the Vajpayee government had decided, and and the ship channel was exactly in the middle of the Gulf of Mannar, which separates India and Sri Lanka. So under the law of sea, United Nations law of the sea, you cannot build such a project unless both countries on either side of the medial line, the border, so to speak, on the ocean, are agreeable to it. So, but India went ahead without consulting the Sri Lankans, and T.R. Balu of the DMK was, I think, environment minister. He played a major role in just ignoring Sri Lanka. So when I came to know this, I contacted Rajapaksa and said, can you give me a letter saying that you have not been consulted and you have a right under the UN law of the sea, which India has ratified, so India is bound by it, and you to believe in Lord Rama, and therefore, in fact, in Lord Rama, there are places which are connected to Lord Rama and Sita in Sri Lanka. Ashok Vatika is where Sita was kept as prisoner. That is in Sri Lanka, near a place called Kandy. The mountain which Hanuman brought is also there. And you will be surprised if you go there. The plantation on the mountain is all what you find in the Himalayas, not anywhere in Sri Lanka. Now, this is such a big mystery. And I mean, mystery for those who are non-believers. But for me, I believe that is the Sanjeevani mountain. And Ravan's palace, all of them have been renovated today. And he gave me this letter, which I filed in the Supreme Court, saying that this is an illegal project because it has not got the clearance under the UN law of the sea. So that was also a factor in my winning the case. And so he played a role at that time. And since then, he has renovated all these places. And now when the Ram Setu is declared as a national heritage monument, which I don't know why the PM is continuing to delay the matter. The file is lying on his table, sent by the Culture Ministry. All he has to do is sign it, but he is not signing it. Then what happens is the government will have to be responsible for the upkeep of the island. Today, there's nobody who's looking, not island, the Ram Setu. Today, nobody is looking after the Ram Setu. It's still subject to all the vagaries of the weather. But once this road is made, you can walk across it, like Hanuman did, like Ram did, like Lakshman did. So imagine a tourist development. You come to Rameshwaram, pray in the temple there, then go to Dhanushkodi, then walk across the bridge, go to Sri Lanka, and then see Ashok Vatika, and see the Sanjeevani mountain, Ravan's palace, and then fly out from there to Delhi or Chennai. I mean, what a huge religious tourist project it would be. So therefore, I'm saying that Rajapaksa is ready to be cooperative in this because he will be the gainer. There's be so many tourists will go from India if such an arrangement is made. And I'm telling you here, he has even recently when I spoke to him, or rather when he came for the visit after becoming Prime Minister, not now, but the last occasion, that time he had told me we are ready for it, we are just waiting for it. And so I think India-Sri Lanka cooperation will be a great boon for our Ram Setu relevance and project, and we should proceed for it in a very vigorous way.
Dr. Swamy, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Unlike the propaganda made by some of the Dravidian parties who just talk about the Tamils of Sri Lanka, but hardly do anything for them, I just want to tell our viewers that how you got released the Tamil fishermen from Rajapaksa's government who were arrested for going and fishing into Sri Lankan waters. Could you please tell, because many of these Dravidian fellows, they don't do anything for the Tamilians, but try to spread this mischief or disinformation. Please tell our viewers the role played by you and what was the context.
Well, I think not only the Tamils doing the here also. I mean, the case of this now he's Republic owner. What is his name? Arnab Goswami. I mean, what a fraud he did at the behest of Arun Jaitley. I'll tell you what happened. Some Indian Tamil fishermen were caught by the Sri Lankan Navy after they crossed the international line. Because what has happened is, because these Dravidian leaders have got boats, which are mechanical boats, and we used to have the best shellfishes, prawns, lobsters, from on our side of the water and the seawater, and we used to export that. And they did it in such a way that they didn't even leave the eggs which were being deposited on the floor of the ocean. And finally, the fishermen couldn't get any fish to catch, and they were all employees, and they were paid according to the amount of fish they caught and brought, or the prawns and shrimps and so on. And so they began to go across the international line and fish in Sri Lanka water, where all this was available in plenty. So Sri Lankan Navy started arresting them. And in one case, they discovered that they had brought narcotics, which is what the LTT was doing. They were using all these fishermen for transporting of black money and narcotics. So they got caught, I think 4 of them. And the Sri Lankans then took them to court, and there they were given a death sentence, because owning of narcotics in Sri Lankan law means death sentence. So they were awarded death sentence. Now the question is, they are appealing to the High Court, but who's going to go and argue? The DMK guys, talk a lot in India, but they're too frightened to go. No lawyer went. And these guys would have been, it would have been confirmed that in the High Court, and that would have been the end. So at that time, many Tamils contact me. These are all silent Tamils. They don't speak up. But they contacted me saying, this fisherman community will get a very big blow, and they are all living on this. And, we don't know what proof is there, and all that sort of stuff. So I went to Sri Lanka and spoke to Rajapaksa. And told them that, we have a 1970 law or an agreement between India and Sri Lanka, that if any Indian citizen is convicted at the lower court level for crimes committed on the Sri Lankan side, then the appeal to the High Court or the Supreme Court can be done in India. So these convicted persons at the lower court level, would be sent to India, and India would then prosecute them for the same thing, as if it's on appeal in the High Court or in the Supreme Court. So I said, there's a lot of emotion being stirred up. Why don't you use this agreement and send these people back to India? And then we will see that that they prosecute them and prosecute them fairly. Will not do any hera-pheri on that. And so you will be satisfied, we'll be satisfied. It's good for our both relations. Rajapaksa said, why do this? I will use my presidential power to pardon them. And the warning that this will not be done. But I will not return the motorboats that we have seized, because they are not owned by these fishermen. They are owned by DMK leaders like Balu and others. So we are not returning those ships. So I said, fine, I'm not concerned with those, mechanical boats or whatever they are called. I am interested in these people, and I'm shocked and with pleasure that you have decided to pardon them, because this is the first time offense of theirs, and so they were freed. Now there was a huge swell of opinion in my favor. Both these DMK walas and the LTT walas all very upset, and here also, people thought that after 2014 I will just disappear. I'll go home and sit down because I am 75 years old. Well, I'm much younger than them. If you see, all those who accused me of being over 75 have died recently. So, therefore, what is age got to do it if you live a clean life, upright life, so on. So, but they were unhappy that I had created this Virat Hindustan Sangam, and I was getting increasing popularity day by day. And this was going to add to my base in Tamil Nadu. You know that once I got elected to Lok Sabha from Tamil Nadu. So, therefore, they made Arnab Goswami call me for a special interview. And in that, Arnab Goswami said, I have a letter that you have written to Rajapaksa that these 4 people should be hanged. Isn't this on your part an outrageously anti-Tamil thing? So I said, if I've written a letter, please show me a copy or read out from a copy. So I got the letter. Be assured I have got the letter. So he went on in this, and that's all being broadcast all over Tamil Nadu and of course the rest of India. And so therefore I let him have it. I never abused anybody so much as I've abused him. Of course, I also took a decision that unless he apologizes in public, I will not appear before him. I'm not against the journalists who are working for his Republic TV, but I will never agree to an interview by him, because he did it. Later on, I said, you make a public apology and say you have no such letter. And that he is not able to do, because he didn't invent the thing. The letter was given to him by this Times Now lady and special friend of Jetli, Navika. She had told him that, I have got this letter, be assured, and you can go ahead with confidence and say you have the letter. And he has tried to explain it, but there's no explanation. He has to publicly apologize. So this is the way they go on doing this. And even today you see in Twitter and all that, these fellows, I don't know who they represent, because if our people, who are all very, very smart, educated people, decide to go after their patrons, whom we think might be their patrons, those patrons will wilt. They will not be able to even stand scrutiny, because whatever we'll say will be based on facts and not on political issues. So therefore, this is a very bad habit in many people. They don't come out in the front. They pay somebody to do a false tweet and things like that. But these are things that you have to suffer, because the general public is totally in favor of what I'm doing, and that's all that matters.
Dr. Swamy, I have 2 questions. You can answer them quickly if you want to be just on running slowly. First thing is basically the remnants of so-called Elis. Still in Tamil.
Eli in Tamil means rat.
Right. Yeah. So they're still roaming around and claiming, using his picture, even though the LTT per se is banned. Yes. Prabhakaran was deemed a terrorist, clearly.
Yeah.
I understand it's really not. It's like, let the barking dogs lie. Don't have to worry about it. But is that seriously?
No. What? See, the thing is that just for our audience, let me say that Vidudalai Puligal means freedom. Liberation tigers. So the LTT stands for Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam. So Vidudalai Puligal, I changed it to Adimai illegal. Adimai means slavery, and illegal means rats. So those rats who are slaves, not those tigers, Puligal, who are for freedom. So that's how the phrase came. But now, thing is that if anybody can photograph the picture of Prabhakaran put in any wall or any place, send it to me. I'll immediately get the police to arrest them, and because the police knows who's doing it. But nobody complains. They only say, in general terms, people say, "Oh, they are doing this, they are doing that." 99% of the DMK, at least 100% of the DMK at the top level now never talk about Prabhakaran. Previously, they used to say, Sri Lanka is this, Sri Lanka that. Now they've stopped, because anyone speaking in favor of Prabhakaran violates the law, and they can be arrested under the National Security Act. So if you come across any of these elites being portrayed as martyrs, just let me know. I'll be happy to file a case.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Swamy. The second question is his economy. Rajapaksa and the president earlier talked about the loan waiver from India.
Yes.
You said how we can help, because Sri Lanka, after all, is our very strategic neighbor, because it comes as you have talked about China. Sri Lanka becomes a very strategic partner because of that, because we lost Hambantota because of what Manmohan Singh, what was given on a platter, refused to accept. I mean, it should have been very strategic. Malacca won, and the Hambantota, let's say the Chinese could not even travel west forever.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's right.
So how can India, help Sri Lanka economically, because they are not as advanced as India? So just a few thoughts on that.
That's why I think I will moderate that point of view of yours. Between 2005 and 2015, when he was president, they were growing at 10% per year. And whatever miserable situation they have today is partly because this period from 2015 to now, almost 5 years, the Sri Sena government has done very poor. I mean, they didn't even have a united government. The Tamils were pulling in one direction. Somebody, so they were not doing too well. But now with the coronavirus, which they have very strictly controlled. In fact, you know that Rajapaksa wanted me to attend the oath-taking ceremony which took place this morning. But the coronavirus restrictions are so terrible, for which I have to get a waiver, special waiver. If I go to Sri Lanka and come back, when in Delhi airport, they have to pick me up and take me to for 2 weeks to a quarantine center. That's law. I mean, there's no exceptions for anybody, unless you are on official duty, which I was not on. Therefore, the Sri Lanka has suffered because of Corona and the strict action they have taken. They have got it down. I think 20,000-30,000 is the level. We are 2 million. They are 20,000, 30,000. Even population ratio wise, they are much better than us. So I think what we need to do is the kind of loose economy that was there during Sri Sena and Vikramasinghe's time, and that we can be gentle in terms of rescheduling loans and so on. Otherwise, there's nothing very much we need to do. We have done already quite a lot. Actually, our government, we have now a railway line to Jaffna for the first time in their history. And we have built airports and so on. We have done quite a lot of work. But Sri Lanka doesn't need our spoon feeding. They are now very attractive for foreign investment, and it's a boom. Once you must go to Sri Lanka and see how much change has come, and you will understand that they are not a backward country.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. Before I end the program, we have received a lot of thanks from Sri Lankan refugees who had come, Sri Lankan Tamil refugees who had come to India, who remember you still for fighting for their legitimate rights in India.
Yes. And those who wanted to go back, I made sure that the ships were provided, and all our bureaucracy was not even providing ships.
Not only that, you got for education purposes for the Tamil refugees of Sri Lanka, special quota for seats and scholarship.
That's
In
right.
fact, one of the organization is OFERR of Ceylon. That is the organization for Elangai Refugees Rehabilitation, headed by Mr. S.C. Chandrahasan.
That's right. Chandrahasan is a guy who should be honored in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, who has done great service. So I just tell the Dravidian politicians of Tamil Nadu that here Dr. Swamy has been fighting for the rights of these refugees who are in India for over 2 or 3 decades and got them admissions. Various governments, whether it was Deva Gowda government, whether it was Gujarat government, whether it was subsequent governments, you represented and got many of the concession for the refugee children. So people, in fact, have sent me messages. So I want to publicly tell our viewers about the role played by you.
I'm very happy they all remember. And I will do more. I've said that if they vote for Rajapaksa, I will come and see that the decentralization powers that they want, which are reasonable, I'll fight for them with Rajapaksa.
It's very kind of you to hear these points. I am sure the Tamilians of Sri Lanka, especially the northern and eastern parts of Sri Lanka, will appreciate this.
Yes.
So with this, we come to the end of another interesting episode of Words of Wisdom Gyan Ganga, which is hosted every Sunday by our Virat Hindustan Sangam team at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. And it is a great pleasure to keep telling our viewers that we have been receiving your support from about 140 plus countries across the world. In fact, just to give an example, last week's Sunday program, within the first 12 hours, had reached a viewership. Within the first 12 hours, had reached a viewership of 2.4 lakh viewership. And till today, it has almost crossed the 3.5 lakhs mark. So it is great encouragement we are receiving from our viewers for the wisdom which Dr. Subramanian Swamy shares. In fact, it is many people envy it. In fact, ours is not a formal TV channel, but we webcast it on our 4 social media platform, that is YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram of Dr. Swamy. So we thank you, viewers, for your support. I must thank my co-host, Professor Arvind Chaturvedi and Mr. Ramesh Swamy for their excellent coordination and support. I also have to thank the technical team led by Mr. Ashish Shetty from Mumbai, Vishal Mehta also from Mumbai, then our Sri Ishwar Iyer from Navi Mumbai, then we have Tejas from Pune, Rakesh from Bangalore, and Swaminathan from Chennai for their constant help in planning and behind the scene support to put this program together. Before I wind up, I would request Ramesh has some comments to offer.
Yes.
What we also don't know that because of Dr. Swamy, many of the Sri Lankan Tamils in Tamil Nadu got admission into colleges because they were earlier stopped. And because Dr. Swamy who initiated, because a lot of the Sri Lankan youth, Tamil youth in Tamil Nadu, owe a lot of gratitude for Dr. Swamy, and many of them have come out. But again, not many people know this. So I just wanted to...
No, that's why I was surprised when I got so many messages on the social media when Dr. Swamy was speaking, especially the Tamil Nadu Sri Lankan I'm not saying Tamil Sri Lankan refugees who have gone back and who said that we have reached such important position because during the time we were in India, Dr. Swamy, the government of India helped us because of the pushing of Dr. Swamy, and the organization of Chandrahasan was mainly responsible for championing for these causes. And I believe Chandrahasan used to always to bring it to Dr. Swamy's notice and even take it up with the Prime Minister, Home Minister, and various officials, the Foreign Minister of the government today. So with this, we end our today sorry, Dr. Swamy, you wanted to say something?
No, fine. Everything is fine.
Yeah, with this